Let's see, let's see, let's see. And it is on. Okay, good stuff. Let's start with this meeting. Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful weekend. This one has been a very interesting one for myself. But well, again, my name is Ferdinando Castro Gonzalez. Alongside Yusha, we are the officers for today's meeting. We're in charge of making sure that all these operation work smoothly for you. Again, normally I start explaining the house rules. Thank you, Yusha. If you want to participate, please do as Yusha did. Check that you have access to the chat and write an exclamation mark. That way we know who is speaking first, who's speaking second, and whatnot. It's easier to figure it out who's going to be doing the same, to figure it out the order of who's speaking. If you do that, if you raise your hand, I won't be able to tell who's going to go that way. You can intervene while the conversation. That normally makes it better. But please be mindful that you're having people in the queue. It is an informal conversation. Don't feel like obliged to have like much of technicality words. Like, no, we're not into that. We're just, philosophizing, which is always fun. I hope you have a wonderful meeting today, and I'm just gonna turn my floor to Jeffrey so he can introduce the topic, and also he can give a couple of announcements as needed.
Hey everyone, thanks for coming. It's the first time he's ever called me Jeffrey. That was weird. So yeah, I'm faculty advisor. I'm joking. Never talk to me again. No, I'm happy to be here. Just a couple of quick announcements before we get started. Once again, this is the Dallas College Philosophy Club. We meet weekly, even throughout the summer, every Tuesday, 3 o'clock Central Time. We are all over social media. So we're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. We have our own website. So if you know people who are interested in checking us out, but maybe they don't feel comfortable jumping into a meeting, feel free to share our social media content to them, and perhaps that'll intrigue them even further. Today's topic is an interesting one. Now, again, I do apologize. I missed last week's meeting. It's the first meeting I've missed, I think, since last September, and the second meeting I've missed since 2013. Do apologize for that. That's probably why there was a spike in attendance. But at any rate, I appreciate, I want to give a nod to, again, Professor Ulrich, Lucas up there for covering for me, as well as Ferdinando for stepping in and doing a great job. So thanks to the both of you. All right, at any rate, so I bring that up because last week's topic was Stoicism, and the other possible topic would have been Marxism. Now, two you might consider to be diametrically opposed positions philosophically, but perhaps not. I went back and watched last week's meeting, and there was a lot of focus, again, on the applicability of Stoicism. So how can we concretely sort of employ this philosophy today? Some of the examples I heard discussed and some of the points made don't strike me as a far cry from the way in which maybe one would be Marxist, I suppose. But again, that begs the question, well, what is Marxism? So I guess before we can really compare, we should probably start out by trying to flesh out just very generally what Marxism means philosophically, which is to say, what is the understanding of a human being, human dignity, freedom, when it comes to a Marxist concept, or context, framework. So having said that, I'm going to kick it over to Professor Ulrich. Luke.
Yeah, that's funny. You're not going to kick it to me because I don't have anything prepared to say. But if you really do want me to say something, it would take a little while, 5 or 10 minutes. But I figure you probably have something prepared yourself.
Sorry, I had to do it, folks. Okay, so yeah, I guess I'd put it like this. And again, I'm trying to sort of use this last week's conversation that I witnessed after the fact as like a springboard. So that Marxism doesn't seem completely out of nowhere. There is a through line, perhaps. I guess that might be the entire topic of today's conversation. At any rate, Just the general understanding of what a human being is for Marx boils down to this. Marx is what one would call, in philosophical terminology, and I don't want to get too bogged down in the jargon, as Professor Ulrich was saying. I mean, we could easily just chat. Thank you, John. We could easily chat in monologue fashion at length, just laying out the basic tenets of Marxism. But if we hone in on what a human being is, I think that might be helpful. So Marx is a materialist, is what I was getting at. And so by that, Marx feels as though the human being is first and foremost a natural organism. The human being has nutrients as its primary motivation for most things. What do I mean by that? I'm trying to start with an example. Marx believes that the human being is first and foremost a body that needs to be taken care of. You have to take care of what you are in very straightforward terms, such as, again, getting nutrients, staying healthy, physical health, these kinds of things. And so, again, if you're familiar with Marxism politically, you can begin to see, well, maybe Marx saw a time in society where people weren't even able to meet those bare needs. But again, what does this have to do with Stoicism? Well, beyond being merely a material entity, human beings, that is, which, again, human nature, emphasis on the nature, that we have to keep up with our own sort of natural maintenance. There's also the idea of freedom. So again, for Marx, he believed that because human beings are endowed, well, I don't know if you put it like that, but because human beings are rational and we are intelligent, that there are certain baseline freedoms that human beings should be, without question, allowed to indulge in, allowed to celebrate. And again, they are of an intellectual nature and they are of a creative nature. And for Marx, this is sort of where the crux of freedom lies. So beyond being able to just, I suppose, merely survive, all human beings ought to be able to thrive. Now, again, without sort of delving too deeply into the more political aspects of things, trying to stay on the anthropological aspect of things, how does this relate to Stoicism and the applicability? Well, again, for Marx, there is this idea of, I suppose, a predestination, an end to history that will result in the freedom of all human beings, insofar as human beings are able to, we'll say, rectify the circumstances that has led to oppression in the time of Marx. So there's this idea of an end to something, that something was building towards a culmination historically for the entire history of the species. But within that, human beings have the freedom to not, I suppose, make it manifest, to not create it, to not meet the end. And that would result, again, in things like oppression, and again, to the point where the human being is not even meeting its natural needs. It's and very far from free in that case. So there's that juxtaposed with Stoicism, which, again, Stoicism also believes in a sort of predestination. It believes that everything is destined. Each individual life, each act is being authored by a divine force. So again, when trying to apply Stoicism, it's important to keep in mind that the Stoics believed there's nothing you can do to change the course of things anyway. So you're not free in that sense. But if you accept that it's all sort of divine will, then you are, in a way, free from the pains of life, feeling like you've missed opportunities, things along these lines, because it was never up to you in the first place. So there's less an emphasis in Stoicism on creating your life, creating your freedom, and more an emphasis on a freedom that comes with an overall acceptance. Now,
Okay.
can those be compared? Am I on mute?
Oh, this time, yes. I
I'll leave
was
it
about to let you know. Your camera froze for like 10 minutes. Yeah, but it's okay. But actually, at the end, you were touching a little bit on something that I was trying to talk about, which is like, at least from my point of view, it seems like the Marxism, yes, they believe that eventually we will get there, but they allow more for like resistance, I guess. Like the whole option, like the revolution, like if you see that you're not meeting your needs, like you actually have to take actions. What, like I think, at least from my understanding, is stoicism is just feel as good as you can be with what you're having, like with the card that you have handed to. So it's like you're a slave, feel free and be good being a slave because that's what you have, and why would you feel bad about it? But it seems like in that regard, like Marxism is more like no, just don't just stay. I don't know if it is a misconception, um, but that seems to be the case, at least to me. Um, I'm still struggling to see where it overlaps, the Stoicism and Marxism, because it does seems, at least in my end so far, like opposed. I think that they're like different directions. I want to see in which part is like in the middle, which I guess you were touching a little bit into it, which is like, okay, yeah, like everything is divine. Like humanity, it will fix on its own, and it will come with blood, with sweat, and it will come with all this stuff, like the struggle of power, like those, the bourgeoisie, the bourgeoisie, and like the proletariat, like whatever, all that stuff. Um, but I mean, again, like I think like maybe the Marxism, yes, they focus more on freedom, but they don't ask you to just accept and be like happy. They just kind of like they want you to go and get it, on understanding that you're gonna suffer because it's part of the process. Like it seems to me that way. Um, but okay, I see that the queue is popping up. So George, you're next. And
I think I'm agreeing with Ferdinando here. My kind of initial thought is that these two don't seem terribly compatible. In fact, I think if you have made the end game of Marxism this stoic kind of freedom, where you are uh, free to just accept your situation as it is, and it's this more internal spiritual freedom. I feel like you've kind of redefined or obscured, I think, what Marx was actually going for. Now, I'm not an expert on Marx or Marxism or anything like that, but when I think of Marxism, especially with the materialistic angle, right, it is about who has access to real world resources, right? We were talking about who gets the food that you need to live, right? Who has the freedom to exercise their reason, like we were talking about. So once you take that from this very like concrete, like physical material need thing and make it about this like spiritual freedom of just accepting your situation how it is, I think you have changed Marxism radically. The other point of um, contention that I think is relevant is the idea of freedom. Manzi, you noted, Stoicism is everything's destined by the divine will, right? So there's no freedom in that system. Uh, but under Marx, freedom seems really important to the whole scheme, where we have our minds, our reason, right? And we ought to be able to exercise those things freely. And similarly, with the end to history, we are free to either make it happen, by our own strength or not. Those, on one, you need freedom. On the other, it's deterministic. Those don't get along. And the other thing that doesn't get along is one of them is very materialistic and having to do with who has access to resources, and the other one is about, um, I don't know, I suppose making do with the situation you have, even if you don't have those resources. Those two things don't get along, I don't think. So those are my initial thoughts. I'm open-minded, though. Y'all try to convince me.
no, that's okay. I do want to say something before like throwing it to Luca. He already brought down his whole essay on what to say. But you were mentioning something about freedom in Stoicism. I think that they do encourage you to have freedom, not just with the exterior, but on how you receive things, like I guess your state of mind. Like it's so like you have the freedom of choosing how to act on whatever it is that is happening. So I think that that's the freedom that they're doing. Like you can do with your actions whatever you want. Just try to make it like whatever is gonna be more, uh, I guess, just better for you, either emotionally or whatever. While Marxism, they look on how freedom looks like. So I guess to some degree they do wonder about that part. I'm not gonna stand too much. I want to hear what Luca has to say. But yeah, Jusha did make a fun about how much Ulrich write in terms of speaking before anything. So, anyways, go ahead.
You're right. I do write a lot, but it's more because I always like anything that I say within a group to connect to kind of the spirit which is going on in the group. So it's one thing I love about groups, which is I get to say something a new way that I've never said it before. So I take my ideas and they filter through. I think everybody's on the right track. And I think probably the missing idea is thinking about this idea of all of existence, the universe is an organism. And so this is an idea that goes back, well, very ancient, but it's in Stoicism, and we talked about it a little bit last week. And if you think about the entire universe as an organism, and that organism has a soul. So some people call this the entire universe or the macrocosm, and it has a soul. And the soul is the pneuma, the spirit. And us is individual microcosms. Well, we breathe in breath. That's the psyche, the suke, our individual breath, which we breathe in of the macrocosm. So we're part of this whole thing. Now with Stoicism, there's kind of the more individual virtues where we talked about wisdom and temperance and courage. And last week we didn't get into justice a lot, but that's where we kind of take the individual aspect of Stoicism and we can pursue it through towards the social world. I think that's the more difficult part of Stoicism because at least my reading of Stoicism, I don't see it a lot before the Roman era, and the Romans did a really good job of taking it and applying it in a social context. Now, when we get down to Marx, he's taking from Hegel, who takes this exact same organism idea, and Hegel says that what we've been breathing in the entire time, part of this organism, is reason. Reason has been running through, or the logos, it's the same thing, has been running through the universe and expressing itself through human beings. But what's the end goal that it's trying to get to? For Hegel, the end goal is freedom. And freedom is where we kind of recognize that, oh, we're part of this thing, and we can look back and recognize that we're part of this organism, so that other people that I look at, they're not a separate being. They're also flowering off of the same plant. What Marx does is he takes that entire system and he cuts God out of it. God's been the central part of this entire story all throughout history, going through Stoicism, all through the Middle Ages. And Marx says, the story is right. We are going towards freedom, but the entire time this has been human beings. It hasn't been God. So whereas Stoicism, the reason it gets stuck is because God's in the background and controlling the way that the universe is shaped. But in Marx's idea, if we cut that off, this is just humans freely acting. And so when he looks at society and he sees it structured in a certain way, where you have the peasants on the bottom, and then you have the middle class as the landowners who are controlling the peasants, and then you have the leaders in the society, he says, we can remake this whole thing. This isn't some inevitable outcome, which is God unfolding itself throughout history. We can make history. We can do what we want. There's nothing compelling us, which is the purpose or goal, other than the purposes and goals that we make. So we can have a more liberal democratic society where everybody's free. We can remove all these hierarchical aspects. And that seems to be at least what I'm trying to do, because the question that came up was how do all these things connect? That would be my way to try to get an overview to make the line of all of this connect historically. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, sorry, it didn't help at all. Yeah. No, it's okay. It's okay. It did make me a fun pun. Yeah, stoicism. There's something there. But anyways, Osita does have something to say. He said, "Does stoicism discourage trying to better one's lot in life? That's different from idealism." Yeah, I mean, it's something interesting to say. But Nancy, you are next in the floor, so go ahead and take it.
Yeah, thanks. Again, great conversation, great responses. Finally got some love for that clever stenographer host, so thanks, Lou. Yeah, listen, a couple of things. I guess let me respond to George first a little bit. Yeah, George, I understand the incompatibility is certainly a part of this conversation, and I do believe it is. But and I really liked your sort of overview of Marx, and you hit at the central theme again. As I alluded to, he was a materialist, so materialism is certainly the driving force in Marx, which is to say, again, the not just the need, but the encouragement and I suppose viability of providing for one's needs as well as one's desires. So that second part is kind of the key here. So it's like, okay, if Marx wants this sort of material freedom, well, to what end? In what way will material freedom allow us not just to survive, but to thrive? And then that comes into play in terms of the nature of the desires that different material organisms are capable. And the human being is capable of desires of a spiritual nature. And Marx is very clear. He says that's the end goal in terms of individual flourishing. And the reason why a political upheaval is necessary is so that human beings can be free creatively. And for Marx, creatively includes, I suppose, if you want to call it spiritually, you can call it that. But again, for Marx, very clearly an atheist, things like theology, things like religions, mythology, to him, are just exquisite examples of human creativity. And if there's a large majority of the human population that are, again, we'll just say oppressed, without getting into the means and ends and the bourgeoisie and the proletariat, then there's a large percentage of the population that isn't even being allowed to be human. And again, for Marx, being human means being free to be creative in a way that only humans are capable of because of our rational intellectual nature. So I think there is an overlap. I'm going to pause for applause and then I'll continue. All right, continuing. Responding to Luke, Luke, I really love the way that you characterize it. I think it's a good way to contextualize Marx within Hegel, because again, without Hegel, there is no Marx in terms of the philosophical contributions in the Western tradition. Yeah, I would quibble a little bit over your characterization of Hegel and this notion of God being the driving force behind Hegel. I think you can call that into question, but maybe that's a topic for another day. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. But well, you know what? I won't leave it at that. Let me pose one additional sort of a question here. And again, getting us back to the topic at hand of applicability. Given what we've discussed about what Marxism sort of is, generally speaking, and what it implies specifically for what a human being is, again, according to this particular approach, how would one apply that? Is it being applied today in America? Why do most people say that Marx failed? Things along these lines. And again, Marx wasn't born that long ago. So again, we're not talking about, the Stoics were a long time ago. Marx, not so much. Who it is, the prodigal has returned.
Yeah. The derailed son has somehow come back to us out of the shadows. Huh?
Welcome back, Orlando.
Hey, what's up, guys? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you're saying Marxism, Manzi, what exactly are you referring to? Just the general ideology, or do you mean sort of, communism?
No, we're not touching Marx as communism. We're touching the philosopher Marx
Just as
as
general
philosopher.
ideology.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, Marxism as the brand of communism.
I see. Okay. So I think, yeah, I think to some degree we definitely are seeing shades of it today in terms of people and their their professions. Because I think more now more than ever in terms of, the virtual age, because you can do things through social media, you can have a job through social media, you can have a talent and then turn that into a commercial item. So it's like his whole ideology was, okay, well, what humans kind of seek in a profession is an expression of themselves, an extension of themselves. And sort of that was his criticism of capitalism, that it kind of takes that away from you, or you're a specialist. You're only turning a knob, you're only pushing a button. But I think today we're kind of sort of turning to that, where basically people are adopting talents and then turning that into, their own monetary gain. And I think that's maybe a possible way to look at it.
Positive. So we were looking at negatively. Oh my God, I didn't know. I'm so sorry. No, but yeah,
I mean,
but
is it possible?
it's okay. I don't think none of us are really trying to do that. We're trying to mostly see how the Marxism can connect to the Stoicism. Like if there is a possible overlap in both the ideologies. So for that, we have expanded a little bit more Marxism since we already talked about the Stoicism last meeting.
Well, yeah, you know what? Though, let me respond to that quickly, because I did invite the question of, again, how might that look today, the applicability of Marx. Yeah, so I like what you're saying, Orlando, because again, for Marx, that it's so crucial for, if you want to use this term loosely, an artist to be connected to the, or the creator to be connected to what's created. It doesn't have to be like arts per se. It could be anything. And so nowadays, with everything being kind of digital, being kind of even virtual, you might say, has that somehow increased or decreased that, for Marx, very significant connection between feeling like I can express myself, really externalize myself, objectify myself, my perception of things, my interpretation of things, into an object. It could be a meal, it could be a statue, it could be a film, it could be a sentence, whatever the case may be. Yeah, I mean, I think on the one hand, you could argue that technology has increased the options, but the question does remain: has it somehow, maybe not severed, but diminished the sort of more organic connection, like the tangible, literally the physical contact connection one has between oneself and one's work? Yeah, I was thinking more along the lines of the sort of, I guess, calling into question the freedom that should be understood for every organic human being, which is to say, every human being, regardless of economic stature or whatever the case may be. Okay, I'll leave it at that. I keep rambling. I'm sorry. I was out last week, and
Oh wow! Like
I need
today.
reminders of my own brilliance. So
No, today it's a good day. Mansi just figured it out. He rambled a lot. That's good. The first time is accepting it, then you can
Andy, I
work on it.
have a question
like,
for that. Could a successful economic system be really adopted in that fashion, though? Like, could it be that we can provide, I guess, the most simple needs for everyone successfully, under the current climate of our current system, our current economic system, where it's basically, okay, profit over everything? Um, my belief is no. Personally, I don't think so. But I think what I was trying to say is, in this market system, we've kind of created this, like what you said, is this option where, yeah, maybe you could go work at McDonald's, or work a blue collar job, but then on the side you can actually adopt and adapt your talents. You can still turn to the social media, and then once that's become sustainable, then that can become your full-time job. Or there's so many different kinds of ways to have monetary gain in today's day and age. And I'd say in comparison to the past, it's vastly different. Think about the 60s and think about today. Think about the exposure that you can get simply from your phone and from your computer versus then. That's something much more viable today. And I think that's something that's going to happen under a market system, especially with like the increase of production due to things like artificial intelligence. Obviously, as more technology comes and less manual labor is needed, more and more creation of jobs through these different kinds of fields are going to be created. And so I guess from that I guess we're going to have to ask is like, is everyone special in that way? Do we all have the capacity to have a talent? Can we all capture interest? At one point, are we going to be measured by how many social media followers that we have, so on and so forth? I don't know.
Well, again, for Marx, yes, and I like your point. The talents will adapt to the not the needs so much as the circumstances. So, yeah, if human beings are for Marx, let me cut to the chase and open it up to everybody. But for Marx, it's about the opportunity to develop talents. If one doesn't develop their talents, then that's on one. That's on that person. But the opportunity should be there. I will say this though, real quick, because I like the points you're making. If you look at something like the democratization of investment or capital investment that's been occurring even recently through things like Robinhood and the creation of new currency, stuff like that is something that Marx would approve of, insofar as it's leveling the playing field in terms of allowing almost in a return to tradition, allowing the artists themselves, think of like Patreon or something like that, allowing the artists themselves to create content and earn an income that isn't necessarily reliant on these mega corporations and conglomerates that one could argue nowadays is kind of like controlling the means of production. So I do think there's something to consider there. But okay, yeah, Yusho would like to speak, and then Professor Ulrich after that. So I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, but before you just said something, I think I found an overlap. I think because I mean, it come to me after like what Orlando said, because it regards to the talent. Like if someone has a talent and that person wants to be more connected with the work, even though the current system it does kind of like compare whatever is it that the English word is to kind of like sectorize you into specific things, you can still go out of your way with whatever is handed to you to make your work more meaningful to you. So you still have the option to do it, like you still have the freedom. Like I guess the whole freedom thing in this regard is not on how you behave, but is in how you go out of your way to make sure that works fits your criteria and you can actually enjoy doing it and kind of like I guess profit from it. I guess like you have to be creative enough to create an alternative on how you can enjoy your work instead of just fitting into the whole like a spot that the people want you to do. You just kind of like create your other spots and you connect your own dots. I don't know. It's just something that I thought when he was talking. But anyway.
I like that. Yeah, I think that's good.
All right, so yeah, you said you're next.
Hey, thanks. Again, I'm sorry I couldn't reach the last meeting last week on Stoicism, but yeah, I think I definitely think that there is overlap between the two because see one ideology states that, for example, if the Stoicism ideology was put in a statement, right, it would be that okay, you're playing a game, but it doesn't matter if you win or lose the game, as long as you play the game, which is us, right? In any, if you want to put it in society terms, it doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, as long as you're enjoying your life. So, in my opinion, that would fall closer to Stoicism as opposed to Marxism, because Marxism is more about your material belongings and very materialistic, that you have what you have, you can strive for more, but not without the resources that you need to capture the more. So in Given the two top ideologies that we've discussed so far, I think both can correlate, and I think they do mingle a lot in more modern times as opposed to earlier. So let's take an example in ancient culture where people believed more in God, natural phenomenon, rebirth, reincarnation, and that kind of stuff. They were more spiritual, right? And in that society, it would have made sense to be a stoic. Why? Because that is all you have. You don't have modern medicine where it ensures that your child doesn't die of pneumonia or the common cold or something like that. But now that we have modern medicine and doctors and scientists and everyone can ensure that your child lives longer than you or dies after you or anything where its life is prolonged, we tend to turn more towards the Marxist ideology. Why? Because going to the doctor or making sure that your child is safe is material. There is nothing spiritual. There is nothing holy, religious, or anything like that about it. So again, just to reiterate, as we move towards more technological advancements and where, especially when it comes to human health and human preservation, we move forward with it, we do tend to go towards more Marxist thinking. And as Orlando was mentioning, today we're just meeting because we're comparing the two ideologies that hover over society. Orlando, we're not necessarily going into their how they want to make the society, because Marxist was, if I'm not mistaken, he was in the 1900s and he proposed a society through the eyes of a British communist. So we're not discussing that part of it, but we're just discussing their overview, generic perception of the society. Are we good?
I think so.
I thought someone was saying something. I guess not. So
I think you're good. Yeah.
yeah, Ulrich, Professor Ulrich, you're after me. Yeah.
I just wanted to maybe my first time going through things, it wasn't clear exactly what I was saying, so I went ahead and threw out a drawing for you here. So let's hold on. I gotta see. I gotta do this in half so I can see at the same time. So, all right. So here's my. See, it's gonna be backwards, but all human beings. This is kind of the classical picture, and that is think. And it doesn't matter if you view it this way or if you view God as separate from the world and imbibing humans with their soul. Either way, there's the individuals within God, and we have the individual universe, and we're part of it. This is the classical picture. This is the picture that Stoicism has, as well as a lot of other philosophies. What happens is that when God's pulled out of this picture, you get the recognition that myself as a citizen in a state kind of has the same logic to it. And it seems to me what's going on is Marx is looking at this and he's saying, well, if we're not in this picture and things aren't set in stone, and it's not like this stoical picture where everything's predetermined and we're all part of the plan of God, but we're still in this, where we're a citizen in a state. The question is what we've actually been trying to answer, and that is, how are we going to put ourselves together such that we can be most free and we're able to express ourselves in a way that brings about the highest expressions of ourselves as a human being. So hopefully that clarifies what I'm saying. Is a lot of the work in some of the earlier systems of God is it does keep a predetermined idea of the system, and when that's pulled out, there does become this radical idea of, well, we get to remake it now. And you see this in the Enlightenment, and of course Marx is coming out of the Enlightenment, and I think we're having the right discussion of, okay, well, yeah, how do we remake society such that in the 20th century, about 50% of all of the states would literally call themselves either directly Marxist or influenced by Marx. And so you see this fight between different ways of thinking about how to bring about the freedom of human beings.
But Professor Ulrich, I guess I'll just say two references with that whole thing. The first one being the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in modern times, especially post 2015, and the United Kingdom. Right now, both of them observe a strict monarchy, and they only have a god or superior being in terms of setting their own rules, but under someone else's name. Because what happens in Saudi Arabia, to be specific, because I lived there for almost 18 years. What they do is they say that, okay, this is the law. I'm sorry, there's a bug in my room. This is the law, and this is what God wants us to be as a society, right? Just like UK has Christian laws, rules, and regulations mixed with their own laws and regulations. So could that not be I wouldn't say a good mix of Marxism and Stoicism? They're still leaning towards more Marxism because, again, they're very materialistic, right? Especially when it comes to doing any sort of work for the people, forming the government, or anything of sort. So do you think that these two societies could ever be truly either ways, whether Marxist or Stoic?
Yusha is reading that comment.
It could be an attempt to try to be more Stoic, but it can't be Marxist because Marxist is an atheistic point of view on the world, and he has a reason for that in his system. One of the main reasons is he thinks that if you keep it in the system, you're going to fall back to a hierarchy, and the hierarchy is going to be enforced. Like you're saying, the laws are have the spirit of God breathed into them, such that they can't be changed. That's very anti-Marxist. With Marx, we can always change, and he's looking to have a society where everybody can be the freest. And so, if we have ideals in our society which have the breath of God infused in them, they can't change because God's breath is in those things. They're unchangeable. And so it has to be atheistic in the sense of there has to be free movement to do whatever we want.
But see, that's why I mentioned the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia post 2015, because the new king that took the throne, Prince Mohammed bin Salman, he changed some laws. Like in the old regulation for Saudi Arabia, it said that men and women cannot commingle. Like we did not have co-ed schools, we did not have movie theaters or anything of sort, right? Only because the law said so. And they had these forms of religious police that would monitor everything of sort. But given that the new king has come in and he's changed those unchangeable laws that were supposedly set in stone by some form of higher power, that we cannot touch, see, hear, taste, smell, sense, anything of sort, right? So, and the same thing with the United Kingdom. Like, you can say, do whatever you want as long as you uphold the laws of the country. And that being said, does it still not come off as a tad Marxist, just a little bit? Because just by the virtue of taking away and modifying those laws, like in Christian in Christian religion, adultery is wrong, right? You go to hell for it. But in England, there's no laws that you cannot have intercourse with someone. Of course, there are laws like age limits and that kind of stuff, but there's nothing that suggests that you have to be married to the person you're having intercourse with, right? It's the same thing in Saudi Arabia. You can do whatever you want according to the laws, but those laws are not of the laws set in by quote unquote God.
Right.
And then this person, especially this new king in Saudi Arabia, comes in and changes everything. Like, you might have heard in the news that women are driving, theaters are starting to open up, women are no longer forced to wear the hijab. It's made optional instead of mandatory. So what happened to the rules that were set in stone by God?
I
Do
would
they
say,
just go out the window?
yeah, anytime that you have a top-down hierarchy, like you're saying, the king gave the rules, it's anti-Marxist. Marxist is always attempts to be bottom-up. He wants the people to have the freedom to determine and run the system, which it's always about getting power back to the workers, back to the people. So anytime you talk about anything top-down, like a king came in, well, yeah, it's anti-Marxist. If you're saying the word king, it's anti-Marxist, because anytime you have somebody who is imbued with all of the power, it's anti-Marxist. He wants at least in the beginning, the workers to have all the power in order to bring about a more equal, classless kind of society.
Good stuff. This has been a very good conversation. I see Nancy wants to say something. I normally read the comments, but the comments are very funny. So I don't know if I should read them. I will let that a call from Nancy. Yeah, just let me know if you want me to read them. But beside that, the floor is yours, and then I can read any comments. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. First, just to quickly respond to Professor Ulrich. Yeah, I just to get back to what Yusha was saying, I think Yusha's point was that, he's like, maybe this is kind of Marxist. He wasn't saying, is this Marxism? And so I think he's onto something. The idea of, again, equal liberties, not equal, according to his example there, but the equalizing gradually, perhaps, but nonetheless dramatically, of liberties in a context that is very traditional historically. I think that is very much aligned with Marxist sentiment, at least, where again, for somebody like Marx, the whole idea is to destroy the established tradition. Not this, well, yeah, Marx wanted to destroy it for sure, but in this case, this gradual, maybe reducing of the severity of the disparity, I think there is something Marxist about it. Is it Marxism? No. Is it being spearheaded explicitly with the Marxist spirit? Obviously not. But nonetheless, I think I like that Yusha saw a parallel. I think that's cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, getting to these posts. Yeah, if John Floyd can't even be bothered to put himself in the frame of the camera, then his comments will be read out loud. At any rate, so Orlando does say, so basically theocracy is an autocracy, it's not Marxism. Got it. That LOL burns Professor Ulrich, because he's saying, yeah, obviously. Ooh. Yeah, disrespect.
I do want
He's disrespecting you.
I do want to say that
Are you gonna take that from a student?
This idea of gradualism, there's a reason why revolution is in Marx and why it's such a central idea. Is I think, at least for his thinking, the whole system has to be overthrown, which is, now you're right. You can say that there's kind of seeds of Marxism, and I would agree with that, seeds of change and seeds of going towards equality and things like that. And I think that's how our society has actually taken over Marxism, is we've gotten rid of the revolutionary idea and accepted more gradualism. So yeah, I agree exactly with what you're saying. I think we've removed ourselves from the revolutionary aspect of Marx.
Yeah, now Orlando is just stepping back. It's like, hey, no, you cannot have it. You cannot have it.
Yeah, I'm just teasing Orlando. But yeah, it's John, I'm not teasing you. I'm teasing. No, but I'm teasing. But yeah, Luke. I mean, and maybe this is where George is about to take it. But if you say remove the revolutionary aspect of Marxism, then that's basically saying that's not Marxism. Revolution is the nucleus of Marxism, you might say, and I think even Marx might agree. So that's why it's we can pull maybe these like sort of nuanced comparisons, but yeah, I do think that a gradual revolution, from Marx's perspective, wouldn't have been enough. Now, if you
I agree.
look nowadays, and the revolution is almost bureaucratically mediated, then I see where you're coming from. So, anyways, yeah, George, I'm sorry.
If God's out of the equation and it's all human beings making the society that we want to make, if we're going to succeed, we've all got to agree on the same values. Now, everybody on paper can agree that things like murder, lying, and selfishness and so on are probably bad for society. So on paper, we all agree. And yet I wonder if we're ever going to get there, right? Are we ever going to get to the society that Marx envisions, right? People tend towards selfishness, and the resources in this world are limited. Given those two things, and with God out of the equation to save our sorry butts at the end of everything, I don't know. I don't, like there's a lot working against us, I suppose, as a species. If we're ever going to get there, what's prevented us from getting there up until this point? We've had thousands and thousands of years. Surely it's not just the fact that we believed in God the whole time that stopped us from getting to this good society, right? I'm skeptical of that idea. But at the same time, I don't want to. I don't know.
Yeah, I understand.
We've
But
all got to agree, and I don't know if that's going to happen or not. People are going to act in bad faith, take advantage of the system, grab all the stuff they can get their hands on, and as long as that's true, we're going to have a revolution, and then the oppressed are going to become the oppressors, and the whole thing is going to repeat. I mean, we've seen that, throughout history, and just to not pick on people other than Christians in the Roman Empire started out persecuted, and then once we got the power, right, a bunch of I would say outsiders came in, and we started oppressing other people. So what? Absolute power corrupts absolutely. As long as we are sinful people, I don't know if this thing can work. We're just gonna have animal farm happen over and over and over again. But I don't know. I'm not an expert. I'm some random dude shooting from the hip, raised in a country that hears the word Marxism and instantly just craps itself, right? I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I do come from a country, by the way, that actually speak a lot about Marx. I remember that one of the things that is being discussed a lot is like it's not necessarily like the idea is bad. It's just that the way society is used to work, it stops. It is almost seen as an utopia, utopia. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. For instance, I remember that the way we were seeing it to work, or to at least be able to work, is like you have to eradicate all corruption. Like in the way that it was being seen is you have to take like a bunch of new babies, have them on the spot by themselves, like secluded, and teach them you work for each other, and kind of like create a new idea instead of like you just having an individualistic view of you enrich yourself, is you enrich everyone. And that in societies like today you can't, because you already have this notion of competing, and it would take a lot to remove that from people as they are today. So it seems like it is not like the idea cannot be feasible done. It's like for it to happen you actually have to create basically a society from scratch, and who's going to do that?
Yeah, I,
Yeah.
I think I'm in agreement there. I guess my point in a nutshell is as long as it depends on us human beings, maybe we could do okay. But I'm also a little. I don't have a lot of hope in that prospect.
Does anybody want to respond to that? Because I'll respond to because I think George, this has been the classical Marxist problem, and what they would say is when you get the dictatorship of the proletariat, well, you're going to need a representative, right? So there's always gonna be a bureaucratic core which comes into power, which is going to run everything. And that's where everything gets in trouble, is because it seems like you produce again, once again, this same hierarchy just with new people in power. Um, so yes, it is a problem because you can't have a mass of people running anything. A mass never runs anything. Only a small group is going to be able to run things, and they're going to present themselves as the representatives of the proletariat.
One thing I'll add up on top of what Ferdinando and Professor Ulrich said is that we do have to keep in mind that the two ideologies for running societies come from two very different timelines and situations. Given that Marxism comes from a time where I guess slavery, poverty, and oppression, and those kind of things were not as much as compared to when the Stoic ideology comes from. So the the fact that back when the Stoic ideology was still new and being implemented or explored upon or talked about, um, it was a time where people were literally dying of hunger, as opposed to when Marxists came out in the late 90s. Professor Ulrich, if I'm not mistaken, you're muted.
Yeah, you're muted.
Marx is writing between 1815 to about 1860, so 19th
1800.
century.
Okay. Got it. So yeah, given the two timelines, I think it's important for us to keep in mind of the two different situation scenarios, economic rulings and governings and everything, when we try to find a coherence between the two. Because I think, see, there are some places where a complete Marxist economy does work. Sure, it might be different from our ideology, like from what we sit and see through the lens of the USA, but through their own lens, the societies that are working under 100% complete, true, authentic Marxist teachings, they might call our way of doing things different, bad, or whatever you may have.
I keep putting myself on mute. Yeah, I actually completely agree with you. The thing that I would say kind of as a quote is, I don't think that there's a possibility that there can ever be something like communism. There can be communes, but there can't be communism. So yeah, there can be small groups of people who decide to work as a collective and live as a collective and share amongst each other. But when you start growing the population out, it becomes unwieldy.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna read something here very quick. Then Mansi, you have the floor. So we have Orlando, the prodigy. He's saying, I really like what Professor Ulrich said there about change without revolutions. Although Marxism was foundational in conflict theory, I think this gradual change can be reached through our current market system given social progress. All right, so now Nancy, your floor, and then, yeah, we have another comment.
Yeah, sure. Just really quickly, do plugs again, because we're pretty much at an hour, I think, at least of recording. So yeah, check us out on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all that stuff. If you're interested in checking out what communism is all about, you can contact Professor Ulrich. He'll let you know when they meet. So I think it's bi-weekly. I'm joking. Yeah, I'll just say this, because I do appreciate the critique there.
I'm not a communist, by the way, just in case you were wondering.
Yeah. Yeah, he is not a communist, exactly.
Yeah, wink, wink. No,
Wink, wink.
yeah. Send it to his Hotmail address, and he'll let you.
Me neither, comrade. Oops.
No, I just I wanted to say that there are ways to mediate against the corrupting influence of power. If you, again, theoretically speaking, if you were to try to establish something like a large-scale communism, for example, there's the notion of tenure. So those who are in elected representative offices, you can limit their tenure, and maybe limit it to the point where, 2 years, and then you can't run again for 30 years. You know what I mean? There are ways to make sure that the absolute corruption, as George put it, could be deterred and maybe even extinguished. But just to again critique my own point there, that does imply, and I guess this gets back to Luke's point, that everybody does have something like justice in mind, like uniformly, to the point where it's like, okay, well, if I do have this power for 2 years, I'm not going to try to make it something like a 2-year purge situation where I do everything I can while I have the power. Like, and the idea would be something like, well, if you're only serving for 2 years or so, something like that, then you wouldn't have, it would be in your best interest to promote the greater good, because you will then recede back to the greater good for many, many years. So again, I'm going into detail with that one example, just to say there are, we are critiquing bureaucracy. There are bureaucratic measures. There's a reason bureaucracy came to be. It wasn't some sort of infiltration, or I guess some people may believe that, but the idea is that it did serve a very practical purpose for a time, in precisely something like this. Does that example sort of make sense? Because again, I'm trying to sort of converge here a few different points that were being discussed for the last 45 minutes, which is, again, how can one implement a sort of Marxist sense of freedom in this current state of affairs without, I guess, relinquishing the Marxist mark, so to speak, of that particular position. And in a funny kind of way, we're talking about gradualism and stuff like that. It seems like a very un-Marxist approach is yielding Marxist results. And I think that's a very interesting paradox. Maybe it has to do with the democracy that we have here in America, this sort of quasi-democracy, capitalism sort of thing. It's somehow, again, percolating new iterations of a confluence of seemingly disparate ideologies. It's all very fascinating. At any rate, okay, I'll cut it off there. I think we've exceeded an hour. But yeah, there's more comments in the queue.
Oh, it's okay. So we have Osita saying too much shim DNA, not enough bonobo. Then we have John saying, will they take a ginger in the commune? Setting term limits but not removing lobbyists may not quite resolve the issue, and usually it's the U.S. political system. Cup, cup. And then Eva, overthrown the oligarchy. So we have a commune here, for sure. So, so anyways, I think we don't have any other person in the queue besides you saying Viva la Revolución. Yeah, beside that, we're starting a revolution here. LOL.
Well, real quick,
CIA, please don't shut us down yet.
There's a bug in my room.
Yeah.
Should we return to last summer's ways and put a vote for a possible topic for next week? Because again, we don't have a schedule.
Yes.
Yeah.
So feel free to, yeah, if you have a topic, please mention it.
I'll
Okay.
turn it over to the students first.
No topic? Okay, let's say this.
So quick to comment.
Yeah, so
What?
quick to comment, but not to offer like potential topics.
There is
That's never how
a
it goes.
there's a logical move from someone like Marx to somebody like Rousseau, who is going to see society actually as the problem, and that could be at least a logical movement to where, if you want to stick with politics, if you want to get away from politics, you could go another direction.
So would the topic be, is society the problem?
That yeah, that could be something like that topic. Yeah.
Didn't we do that earlier in the spring? I feel like we were talking about people going off to the woods to escape society and how you
No,
can't
this is
do that.
different. This is different.
Okay.
This is different.
Yeah,
So
the Rousseauian element would be different. I do like that. Again, we'd be going. Yeah, I mean, we'd be going along a certain trajectory. Yeah, I mean, I like it. Again, Rousseau was my favorite thinker when I was an undergrad, so it'd be nice to have a day.
so we already know which topic is not gonna win.
But yeah, to Luke's point, it does make sense considering what we talked about the last couple of weeks. But I don't know about that sort of a provocative title. Is society the problem?
Well, we can think about different title, but it's the direction of the conversation, at least for now. Then we can just do our thing and think how we're gonna frame it. Yusha is suggesting, why is beauty often associated with monetary value? And John is saying, what about type of laws? Legal versus social versus cultural. Okay, you feel free again to nominate any idea, and then we go to a quick election, and the one with the more votes wins.
Great.
Yeah, usually saying, if that is inevitable, why do anything? Yeah, very top much provocative.
All right, so we got to give each topic like a number, correct?
Yes. So it would be, well, let's go to is the whole experience. John option is 1, Luca option is 2, Yusha option is 3.
Say that again.
John option of what type? What about laws, legal, sociocultural? That's 1. Is society the problem too?
A number with the topic next to it, like, so it's like.
Yeah, but I'm gonna have to
crystal
copy and
clear.
paste. Okay.
Yeah, he's being lazy.
I'm being lazy right now. It's fine. I do it. I do it.
Be lazy.
I do it.
I
do it.
That's
you see?
real communism.
Look at me. Look at me. I'm so hardworking right now. Yes, sir. That's right. Take it.
Good call.
You see? There you go. You see? Wow. I work so hard. You see? Kaput. We have 3 options. Feel free. All you have to do is type the number. Yeah, I know, John. He's saying all 9 of us, and we can't vote. It's a miracle we get anything done.
Can I propose it in addition to John's topic? Why not include religious laws into it as well? Let's have them all go against each other, because from my experience, religion does not necessarily equal culture, and vice versa.
I see. Okay, so we have the first vote, number 3 for Eva. Then we have George with number 2. Getting spicy. Ooh, number 2 again from Osira. Ooh, 2 is winning so far. Oh, Luca is on the money right now. It's on the money. So we have 3 people right now. We need everyone. 2. Daniel is just following the crowd. He could have chosen 1, but no. He chose what the people are saying. So is society the problem for that? I don't know. But that's the topic. If that wins, we will figure that out. So we have Mansi with number 2. Let's see. We have 4 number 2s. Ooh. Okay. Oh no, 4? Is it 4 or is it more? 1, 2, 3, 4. Ooh, we have 1. Luca did not vote for his own option. Interesting enough. He wants to keep it spicy. I see.
I was
Number
writing
3.
on law this week, and it just brought a lot of things to mind.
Yeah. He's trying to be humble. He's like, oh, I won without me voting for myself. Yeah, I see what you're trying to do there. Oh, Daniel changed his mind. He said 3. Oh no, I changed his mind. Is society a problem because of that? I don't know. Too much crowd pressure there. I'm not voting because I suggested a topic, but you're supposed to vote too. You see, John, you cannot. That's a no. That's yeah. That's a low move. That's a low move. Yeah. What if everyone suggests a topic? Then nobody votes. We never win. You see, you have to name something. Oh, now then you go back to number 2. I feel like I can make him change all day long. Okay, so I think it's safe to say number 2 won. So congratulations. We are gonna explore is whether the reason why Daniel changed his mind so much is because of society or not. That's the topic right there. It's not that troublesome. All right, so yeah, he won't sway. Neither do I. It has been fun. Again, check us on social media or in any media. We're probably having something there for you. We are all up to date on except for this video. If you want to see how popular you are, just go to YouTube and you're gonna see us. And yeah, if you're staying a year longer in Dallas College, let us know. We may have some opportunities for you available through Dallas College Philosophy Club. And beside that, it's just a blast. There you go. Daniel is already a candidate. There you go. Look at that. Woohoo! He won. He won. You're gonna do all the hard work. Yay! No, just kidding. Just kidding. Yeah. So just reach out, keep in touch. We're gonna be working on all of this all summer. It was fun, and see you next week on exploring more society.
Take care.
Think
Thanks for
about it.
Think about
Woohoo.
Bye, y'all.